Hey, I'm Matt, and welcome to Nothing New, where we explore the ancient roots of modern culture. In the previous video in our series on Greek philosophy, I introduced you to Thales of Miletus and his theory that the arche, or primary element of the universe, was water. That is, all matter is just rarefied or condensed forms of water. Air and earth were seen as just the gaseous and solid phases of water. His rationalism would have a profound effect on philosophy, but the influence of his thought would be felt most immediately in his home city of Miletus. As we touched on in the Thales video, he is often paired with two other influential thinkers, Anaximander and Anaximenes. But as we're about to see, while they may have shared questions about the universe, they often disagreed about the answers. So while you may see them paired together and called the Milesian school, it's important to remember that these probably weren't teachers and students, but independent thinkers in debate with each other. Anyways, let's get into it. I want to start with two quotes that I think do a great job of summing up Anaximander's philosophy. The first by classical scholar Robin Waterfield. The Greeks had long believed, except in their more pessimistic moments, that there was a law of compensation in human affairs, that the gods would, sooner or later, belittle a man who rose too high or too fast. But Anaximander extended this law to the world at large, making it a cosmic principle, and importantly, one that was governed by necessity, an abstract, unchanging force, not a bunch of fickle gods. His vision of a universe ordered by cosmic justice was potent, and soon took hold of the Greek imagination. As the Athenian playwright Sophocles would put it in the middle of the 5th century, even terrifying and the most mighty forces recognize rights. Winter with its snowdrifts yields to summer with its crops, and the weary round of night makes way for the white horse chariot of day, so that she may kindle her light. Philosopher A.C. Grayling tells us that Anaximander's most distinctive thesis, however, concerns the arche. He said that the apeiron, the infinite or indefinite, is that from which everything comes into being, and into which everything finally reverts, by a process which is like reciprocity or compensation. Those famous first ever words of philosophy, as quoted by Simplicius, express this idea. Where things have their origin, there too their passing away occurs according to necessity. They pay justice and reparation to one another for their injustice in conformity with the ordinance of time. The concept at work is that nature operates according to laws, and when they are disturbed, reparation sets in to restore their proper operation. When justice is interpreted as balance, the point becomes yet clearer. His view is reported at more length by Plutarch. The infinite is the universal cause of the generation and destruction of the universe. From it, the heavens were separated off, and in general, all the worlds, infinite in number. He asserts that destruction, and much earlier, generation, occur from time immemorial, all the same things being renewed. Like Robin Waterfield says, there are some potent ideas in here. So let's take it apart. Anaximander, like Thales, believed that everything in the universe came from a single source, arising and passing away according to necessity. They both believed in rational laws of cause and effect, but Anaximander really disagreed with the idea that water was the primary substance that all matter came from. Water cannot give rise to fire, Anaximander argued, and in proposing the indefinite or infinite, known in Greek as the apeiron, as the arche, he was likely influenced by Hesiod's primordial chaos, which originally just meant a chasm or abyss that the world came out of in the beginning of time, according to his poem, The Theogony. Like all of these early philosophers, Anaximander also had a large influence on later thinkers. Aristotle would go on to write that generation and destruction will come to an end unless there is something infinite from which what comes into being is subtracted. Anaximander also believed that while the parts of the universe undergo change, the whole of the universe is unchangeable, which we will see had a profound influence on Parmenides' changeless monism. In Anaximander, we see how classic Greek ideas like justice, balance, and harmony shaped the worldview of these impressive thinkers. When we look at the next thinker in this lineage, Anaximenes, it may appear that he goes backwards. Instead of the infinite apeiron, he goes back to a more basic and material arche for the universe, air. But we shouldn't dismiss the subtlety of his thought. In fact, he's the first to really investigate and try to explain how matter rarefies or condenses into different forms. And his belief in air as the fundamental substance reflects the general Greek belief that your soul was pneuma, the literal breath of life. His cosmology reflected his belief that the same laws operated on all levels of reality, since he thought that the stars were actually the rarefied and ignited breath of the earth. Robin Waterfield points out that what drives Anaximenes' theory seems to be the idea that the same laws that operate on the small scale in the human body also operate on the large scale in the universe at large, that the universe is the macrocosm to the human's microcosm. You may have heard of the phrase, as above, so below, a favorite phrase in Western esotericism. Here's a great example where we can see how some modern traditions, in this case, New Age thought, are still firmly rooted in ancient worldviews. I also sense a similarity between his thought and the belief from Eastern mysticism in a distinction between a gross body associated with food and matter and a subtle body associated with breath and mind. Unlike Western philosophy, which has often assumed a hard mind-body dualism, mind and matter are much more intertwined and interdependent in Eastern thought. We can also see that while these thinkers definitely stand out from the earlier poets, at this point in Greek history, philosophers were more concerned with cosmology than the ethical, epistemological, and political questions that would dominate Socratic thought. The Milesian school was primarily interested in physical questions, and this new view of the universe that explained everything with physical cause and effect was a serious challenge to the old beliefs in a pantheon of gods. We'll see how later philosophers like Plato disagreed with how the poets portrayed the gods, but the most famous challenge to the then common conception of anthropomorphic gods came from our next philosopher in this series, Xenophanes. We'll be exploring unorthodox thinkers like him and Heraclitus over the next few weeks. But first, I want to discuss the worst sin in the ancient Greek world, hubris. That's coming up next week. I hope you're excited, and I'll see you then.